Let's see. Hi there, my name's Renee Hobbs and welcome to the Media Part webinar. Today's date is Tuesday, May 10th, and our topic tonight is video production as conflict management. So we're really delighted to have Yonty Friesem and a number of other members of the Media Education Lab and some other friends and friends. So we're happy you're here. Let's just go around the room and introduce ourselves. Kathy, say hi and introduce yourself, please.
Do I have to can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm Kathy Leogrand. I'm a Renee Hobbs zealot. And I am a professor at Lemoyne College, which is a small Jesuit college in Syracuse, New York, near our big sister Syracuse University, and we actually do some things together. So I went there and so did my daughter. She works at ESPN, so I'm a big media, hog, I guess.
We're
glad to be here.
We're glad you're here. I see Lisa Friesem. Lisa, will you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm who am I actually? I have an adjunct professor in Central Connecticut State University and Manchester Community College this last semester. I'm a researcher in media literacy education, focusing on issues of gender and sexuality, and I'm also part of the Media Education Lab.
Beautiful. Haley, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Haley. I am in your psychology program. I'm going into my third year after the semester, and I'm working with Renee on my dissertation, looking at social media literacy, also using social networking sites for health communication campaigns related to substance use.
Fantastic. And Jonathan, we are delighted that you are joining us. Yonty Friesem, introduce yourself and take it away. Oh, before we begin, though, I just want to note that tonight we are closed captioning, and you can click on the button and check out our caption. Thanks to Lisa Friesem. Okay, Jonathan, I'm introducing you by saying, thank God you're the director of the Media Education Lab. Can you hear me?
We can't really hear what you're saying, Renee.
Uh-oh. Darn.
Okay, well, I can just quickly repeat that. So I'm doing closed captioning for this webinar. So if you're interested in seeing what I'm typing, just click on close CC button below the video, and you'll see my notes as the webinar is developing.
Fantastic. Jonathan, I'm so pleased that you're giving this talk tonight. So thanks for sharing your insight. I think we'll have you talk for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll open it up for comments and questions and dialogue.
Okay. So I'll start with I'll share the screen. I hope that the videos that I'm showing will work. We'll see how that's going to work with sharing. If not, I'll just put the links as part of the closed caption so that people later on can watch those videos that I'm talking about and understand what I'm talking. So I'll share my screen. Here we go. So you should be able to see the slides, right?
Yep.
View slideshow. Okay. So, hi everybody. I want to talk about a new project that I decided to work on as part of a research project. I was part of it last year. Lisa, you might want to mute your microphone because we hear the typing.
Good point.
Yes. So The project that I'm talking about is working on peace education. And when we look at the statistics of places that have very low peace, that those are places that are in conflict, that we're not going to go and do a major project there. But if we look at the medium and low, and the US is in the medium, by the way, looking versus Canada, that is a very high peace place, we can see that there are different places that need some help to work on peace building as part of working on conflict management. So,
What is that?
I don't know, but we should people can mute their microphone, and that might be helpful. Okay, so part of the thing to work on it is the Friends Forever initiative organization, which is based in New Hampshire, but works with Northern Ireland youth, with Israeli youth, and with Uganda youth to bring them together for 2 weeks of civic engagement. And I'm going to show you a short video that describes the work that they're doing. So I hope that it will work and you can hear that.
Friends Forever is a peace organisation to bring peace between both Catholics and Protestants in the north of Ireland, which has been run up for up to 30 years. I first heard about the Friends Forever project through Scotch Street Youth Club. I was encouraged to apply by members who had previously went to Boston. I applied for 2 years now with an application reviewed by the youth club.
So for the sake of time, I'm not going to show you the whole video. You can look at it afterwards in the closed caption. We're going to put the links for each one of those videos. And also on my YouTube channel, you can see those videos that I came and worked with them. So I was invited a year ago to come and to do a 5-hour media production challenge to help them come back to their community and learn to create media messages. And the idea was I'm teaching them like vocational training, how to make videos and how to help doing those videos as a place to kind of like engage their community and tell their own story, which is something that we know in the media literacy community. It has been documented for years. And we know that the major idea of media production with youth is for them to explore their identity and to raise their voice and have their opinion about different things that happens in their lives. However, when I started to work with those different groups, I saw that, as we know, working in groups is not the easiest thing. And when we add to it like the technical part and different project, we have some group dynamic issues. And the conflict that we're talking about, which is between Catholic and Protestant, between Arab and Jews, it's actually getting into the group dynamics. So when we're talking about media production and conflict management, we're talking not just in peace building, but also in the inner group dynamic of it. So I looked into youth and what's happening in the world. And it's really interesting to look at the statistics of bullying that youth is experiencing, and to attach that with the violence that happened globally in your own country, but also generally in the world. And so attaching those two things and using media production to kind of help brings me to the theoretical background of why media, because there's a lot of other programs. There is theater, there is sports, there is so many projects that can offer peace building and help to do conflict management. So why media? So that goes back to three major contributors to the idea of what's going on now with digital media and bullying. And we have Howard Gardner and Katie Davis talking about the app generation, the fact that today there is issues with imagination, with identity, and deep relationship. Douglas Rashkoff talking that we're in a state of a present shock. We're like keep receiving stuff and need to be engaged all the time, and we're not really present. And Sherry Turkle with her new book, Reclaiming Conversation, talking about how to use digital media in order to have a deeper conversation. And with my interest specifically in empathy and how media production enhances empathy, I found the solution not in each one of those, but actually in the newest work of Daniel Goldman and Peter Senge. And those who don't know, Daniel Goldman is the person to write about emotion intelligence, social intelligence. He's not the one to invent it, but he's the one to kind of popularize the term. And Peter Senge talks about systematic thinking and how to work with the fifth discipline, his book. So they contributed to work on the triple focus. And they claimed that in order to address all those issues that the other scholar were talking about, people need to focus on three main things. And interestingly enough, when I was reading that, I was reminded of the way that I'm talking to my students, how to create a script. So I saw the connection, which I'm going to share it now. So the first one is the inner. We need to be focused on our inner to be self-reflective. And that's, you know, the protagonist, who's the main core of the story. And then the second level is the other, the empathy, the community, who are the antagonist and the other supporting roles that helps the protagonist to go through their journey. And then the third one is the outer, which is the system, it's the world, it's the circle, the ecosystem that helps the protagonist to kind of go through their process. So actually, what Goldman and Senge are talking about, that people need to learn to focus on themselves, on the other, and on the world, we can actually use media production to do that in order for them to learn those practices and enhance their reflective and their conflict management abilities. So how to do that? If I'm going to the usual way, I would go to like a media production pedagogy, which is based on what do we want to do? We want the youth to create their own media messages. How are we using that? We're using the media industry standards. What does it mean? So they learn to brainstorm, then they do pre-production, they are planning, then they're doing the actual production, then they're doing the post-production with the editing, and then there is distribution that sometimes they're showcasing, sometimes they don't showcase. So I want to share with you a very short video that I did with the group. So you saw the first one, the group from Northern Ireland, and now I'm going to show you the video of the group from Uganda. So there were different, but this is one out of all these groups.
Uganda, the part of Africa, the land of beauty, good people everywhere. Uganda, the part of Africa, the land of beauty, good people everywhere.
So the idea is that those are people who are coming from 5 different tribes to this project of Friends Forever. And they're learning about peace, education, nonviolence. And they're trying to learn how to make media messages so they can come back to their communities and create with the youth their media messages. And what they did was just to see how they, in a very short time, can combine a message about uniting Uganda and the different tribes, though they have differences and they're coming from different places. So 5 hours I had to work with them. I cannot really work the way that the industry standards, it just doesn't work like that. And they, unlike the filmmakers, don't have the background. One had some idea with editing, but they are not coming like my freshman students, or when I was a high school teacher on 9th grade, they maybe touched a little bit the camera. They're not producer professionals. So the industry standards don't work educationally. So what to do? So I'm offering here a framework that is the one that I'm going to research about looking differently, and I call it the media production hive, because I think that it's not a linear project. It's a hive that all the bees, all the people together are working together, and one is built upon the other, and it's reciprocal and going in a circular way of working together. So the first thing that we're doing is that we're exploring. In order for the students or the participants to have access and to analyze other messages and to look, I'm giving them a 30 minutes kind of really debriefing about what is a close-up, medium shot, and all those things. So they explore those things in order to get the access and analyze. So the learning objective are access and analyze, and the instructional strategy is explore, try, look, learn, research. Then once they have that part, we're going to think about an idea, but we're not brainstorming like a marketing team. We empathize. We're trying to think when they're going to go back to their communities, what their friends are going to think. They're trying to get into the other people's shoes. When each one is offering an idea, they're trying to empathize with the other person instead of just dismissing, no, this idea I don't like. Try to think why they thought about this idea, how it can contribute and add to it. So the empathy part from the beginning is very important to reduce the conflict between them and to start to create a culture of group work. Then they start to negotiate on the actual script and the plan. So you're going to be the director, you're going to be the camera person, it's going to be this angle, this angle. So we're talking about negotiation, which in the industry you don't have negotiation. It's what the DP said, it's what the director said. There is like very hierarchy that doesn't exist in the educational setting when they're working as a group. Everybody thinks they're a director. So there's a lot of negotiation between them and a lot of way to work together. Then we're going to actually, I don't call it production, because I think production put a lot of emphasis on the product. And what they need to do is to know that they're just recording to document, and they can re-record and go back and re-record it. What will never happen in a Hollywood movie because they have so much budget, they won't allow that. So here they're recording to document their plan, but if it doesn't work, they're going back and re-record that. And they're trying and still exploring what they're doing. Then there is, of course, the editing, which is reorganizing all those materials together. Once they did that, they're going to share and reflect, and then they might go back and re-edit and rework on that, so that eventually, once they finish this circle, they worked on creating a message, but also to do some civic action as they engage themselves and their community in a very strong message. So what's important to hear for the model is to see that we have those learning objectives, which are, we want them to access, analyze, ideate, plan, document, organize, reflect, and have civic engagement. And the way to do that is by exploring, empathizing, negotiating, recording, editing, sharing, creating, and doing some action which is socially responsible. So that's the model. How am I going to test that in the summer? So I'm going to have a 12-hour workshop with the people that are going to come from Israel and Northern Ireland. And we're going to do some pre-test with questionnaires and do focus group. Then we're going to do the experiential learning. We're going to empathize, plan. We're going to create the storyboard and do rehearsal. And then the second day, we're going to have again a focus group in the morning to see how it was for them. And then we're going to record for 2 hours, edit the video for 3 hours, share it, receive feedback. And after the screening, we're going to do the post-test and a reflective focus group. And 6 months later, we're going to see again their reflection on it. Was it sustainable? Because of course, after the experience of the 2 days, they'll be in some kind of accelerating kind of feeling that it was really great, but they feel also 6 months later that it was a good experience. So I want to show you the last video, and then I'm going to share with you the research tool, and then we're going to open to discussion. So this is a video that was done in Providence when the students from Israel, the Jews and Arabs, came to the Summer Institute in Digital Literacy and did this project.
I am Jonathan Rutman from Yokneam, Israel. I study at Tagur School. I am Jewish. I am Bashar Harish from Nazareth, Israel. I study at Galil High School. I am Arabian.
I'm Inbal Fishbein from Kiryat Motzkin, Israel. I study at Carmel Zvulon Yagur School. I'm Jewish.
I'm Maya Ghraib from Nazareth, Israel. I study at Galil High School. I'm Arabian.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Maya.
I am Bashar.
I'm Inbal.
Okay. So it goes to Friends Forever, and then it has like the ending. But the idea here was that they're able, with their work that they did, to empathize with each other and to see that the differences and to work as group dynamic, but also with the message to show that really in the beginning they're on purpose mixing so that they're giving the voiceover on another person to mix and to show that there are no differences and a humanistic message. Now, when I want to check that, what I want to try to see is those three circles of self-reflection, of the empathy, and of the systematic thinking. And if that in a workshop of, that was 5 hours, but I'm going to give a 12-hour workshop. If in 12-hour workshop, if media production can really impact those three factors. So I know it's an ambitious kind of like thing to think about. So the way I'm going to test that is, this is Lori DeSautel's social and emotional development checklist. So they just need to check if are my choices moving toward my goals. So there is attempting, beginning, strong effort, or meeting self expectations, and then exceeding self expectations. And so each one would rate themselves before they're doing the workshop and after they're doing the workshop, and then 6 months later. And then the second tool is the empathy scale, the basic empathy scale, and they're Likert scale 0 to 5 with different 20 questions. Like the first one, my friend's emotions don't affect me much. And then you rank yourself. And then the last one is also a questionnaire about Likert scale, about systematic thinking. I seek everyone's view of the situation. I look beyond a specific event to determine the cause of the problem. Now, since I'm not usually a quantitative researcher, I am having those pre-test and post-test, but also I'm having focus group and observation notes to make sure that I'm seeing the limitation of each one of the methods to kind of look at what's happening there, because 4 years ago, I tried another empathy scale, which was a psychiatric scale. And of course, there was no change because in like a day, you won't change your psychiatric empathy through whatever, experience. So what's I'm trying to do here is to see with 3 intervals to see if there is a change and how it's connected, and if it's connected, and if we can connect the conflict management of group production with the conflict management of them going to their community which are in conflict. So if you're interested, we're going to have the group from Israel with new students coming this summer. So we would love to have you. So it's on July 24 to 29. And we're going to have them on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Tuesday after the lunch, we're going to do the screening and we're going to put it online for those who cannot attend to see what was their product and hopefully share the results of the research later on. So I'm going to stop the sharing and then we can have a discussion about this topic.
Wow.
Wow, thank you so much for that great talk. So let's open it up and see who has questions. Who wants to start? Okay, so I'll start. Jonathan, one question I had for you was this idea that that negotiation is a part of the process. So what your model does is really position this approach in reaction to a industry-focused model where production roles are hierarchical and where collaboration is influenced by those hierarchical production roles. Does that mean that the kids will experience a wider variety of media production elements as they move through the process? Will they get, like, so for instance, so the person who's in front of the camera, will that person also get behind the camera, or will the person who's doing research also be sitting there doing post-production? Do you think that does your approach still lead to kids to kind of specialize in certain areas?
So the short answer is that each one will experience everything. The little bit longer answer is that the way that I'm teaching things college level is that my introductory class, the 101 class to TV production, is always everybody experience everything. But then when they're getting to their capstone project, they have gone through 4 production classes going into the industry. Then they choose one role that they want to get, like, professional, because, like, my student professional kind of role, and then they're saying I was a technical director, and you can see 5 TV shows that I did that. But again, in the introductory level, I think it would be unwise to put them in one role that they have an experience, in order for them to have a broader experience, to see that they're doing it again as a group. I'm not trying to do the industry standards. I'm trying to have them to do something more than just vocational training.
Right. So one thing I was wondering about is then in these follow-up interviews, their memories of this experience are going to change over time, right? And I wonder what behaviors might you also expect to be changed or synthesized as people reveal some of their patterns. Like, for instance, are you going to ask about, since they went to finish the program, have they made a video on their own or collaborated on someone else's? So are you going to collect data about their frequency of posting or commenting on YouTube? Because it seems like one thing that probably would happen is that kids from this experience might become, just in general, more active creators.
Yeah.
And so how come you're not measuring media use behavior in this study?
That's a good input that I can look at. What I'm more like looking at is the work that I'm doing with them is for them to create the message for their peers back home. And in the summer, when I work with those 3 groups, we did empathy exercise, because usually what happens is in other projects that I work with, they don't think about their target audience. It's like, oh, let's think about the cool video, and I really wanted to do an action. When I'm asking them all the time, you're going to show your school, your school in Israel, you're going to show that you've been with Jewish and Arab kids together for 2 weeks. What do you think your friends will think about that? And that's frightening, because it's not a usual thing. It's like, I'm going with the enemy, in Northern Ireland as well, in Uganda as well. So the idea of thinking about the target audience is something that I'm focusing a lot in this workshop specifically. And that's something that I want to look at 6 months later to see what was the reaction. When I came back to Israel in December, that was part of what I asked, and it was really interesting because they had different answers. Different participants have different take on that. But they have been doing a lot of videos, which is a good input to look at if it really create more or not. And I just need to make sure that they're not trying to, you know, please the researcher in answering and saying, yes, I posted a lot of videos when, you know, they did it before. So just to make sure that I'm making sure that these threats are being met to,
right.
to look at.
One naturalistic way to do that would be to ask them to share with you their whatever, their YouTube account or whatever, to give them ask them to give you a guided tour of their social media identity, and then basically you can unobtrusively note what you see as those as they show you those pages, right?
Okay.
So that would be one, you know, a way to do it that in the context of the qualitative part of the interview. So let's see if other folks have questions or comments on this interesting set of ideas about peace education, conflict resolution, and video production.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So you're giving them that first step of explore, analyze, and aware about the video tools, production skills, if you will. Are you doing any group dynamic or to work together? Are you doing any discussion or teaching on those skills, or are you just going to let them emerge more organically from the process?
So that's the, I don't know if tricky, it's like a good and a bad thing, you know, in the research part. They've been already together, have been worked on group dynamics for quite a while with that group. So I don't need to add that, but the way that I'm doing my instruction is taking that into account. So, but they have a lot of information and a lot of work on conflict management and group dynamics from previous kind of days and work with other trainers on that. So they're coming quite cooked with this part. When I'm talking with teachers in high school, we're always talking about how the high school teacher should also have this kind of mediator role, and that's always tricky because when they learn that, they learn to be filmmakers and teachers. They didn't learn to be mediators in doing like negotiation. And that's the tricky part. But what I hope is that this research will start kind of a trajectory to look at what are the ways to do it in media production specifically, which is my interest, and how we can equip teachers with strategy that are media-based to do those negotiation and not starting to take from like non-violence and conflict management, which are totally foreign to media production.
Yeah, that's a great.
That's great.
That was a cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. I started thinking about, you know, what little I know of how conflict management theory applies to media production is it's like a thimble. I have very little knowledge. So this is a fascinating new area, Jonathan. I'm really thrilled you're exploring it.
I think to piggyback on that, I was sort of thinking along similar lines. I imagine your role as a facilitator in terms of conflict resolution will be an important one, depending on how involved you are in that process. It'd be interesting to know in terms of the types of guidance you provide to teachers or whomever moving forward, sort of what your role is like and how involved you have to be in the process, and sort of, is there some sort of fidelity checklist or something, some sort of guidance that could be used or implemented should somebody else want to do this in the future?
Yeah, and the idea is to create eventually a guide, kind of a guidebook, because what I'm doing specifically for that program, I'm not talking about even about the research, I'm just talking for the program, is that I'm doing this experiential learning for the participants, but then they need to go back and replicate what we did with other people, sometimes their age group and sometimes younger or older, So they need also those kind of like guidebooks for them how to work on it. That's just for that project, yeah.
Wow. So wait a second. So these kids go back and they're charged with implementing a film program in their community?
Not a film program. They're doing civic engagement. Part of it, what I'm trying to do is not use high-end cameras and like the most advanced, something that they have in their community, so that we're doing something that can be replicable easily without any issues of content. And they've been sharing videos on the Friends Forever Facebook page. You can see videos that they have done in Uganda, in Israel, in Northern Ireland, after taking my class, my workshop in the summer.
Wow. I think just a careful look, a careful, rich description of those videos might yield some really interesting insights around, like you said, that translation issue gets much more complicated when you come home, right? Where the racism and the stereotyped attitudes and the bullshit are coming from your parents and your family. You know, it's harder to hold on to those ideas that got like birthed, you know, when you're in your home, in your outer circle, your 3 circles, right? So it would be interesting to look at what the nature of the peace message was, you know, over time, right? Fascinating. It's a really interesting opportunity, I think. And I love the idea that you will have developed some recommendations, you know, from this based on your experience. So I wondered about, Jonathan, the storming, norming, forming, conforming. You know that paradigm for conflict management? Have you heard of that?
I didn't hear what you were saying. You were cut off.
So I wondered about that model of conflict being an inherent part of collaboration. Is conflict an inherent part of collaboration?
Well, you said the model. There is the model of avoidance, collaboration, about like on a scale how much assertive you are, and I don't remember what it was the other thing, but there is avoidance, negotiation, collaboration, accommodation, and what did I miss? It's how aggressive you are and how assertive you are, something like that. I need to look exactly, but yes, there is. But that would be something to look at. I think it's the group dynamics, that each person come to like the role of like, you know, I'm going to be the clown, I'm going to be the collaborator, I'm going to be the person who's avoiding, and like, I don't care because they didn't get my idea. And so you're going to have all those roles working together. And as we know, once you have more than one person, you have some kind of a conflict. It doesn't need to be like a major conflict, a violent conflict, but there's going to be some need of negotiation. So to learn those things with technical tools that you haven't learned before, and kind of like, oh, I need to make a movie, I have only 5 hours. So it adds to that and aggravates sometimes all those conflicts very easily when people are working together. So can we use the media not to aggravate, but actually to mediate and to help promote empathy? That's what I think we can do. But it doesn't always work like that, and it's something to look how and what's the pathway. And for sure, it's not the industry standard, the usual way of the pre-production, production, post-production. That doesn't work. That just make it worse. So I'm trying to find a model that will actually work toward more empathy and more conflict management.
Right. I think it would be really interesting to try to figure out what the typology of types of conflict were. Because if I were a teacher and I were entering into this area, I would like to know, oh, sorry.
Oh, we lost her.
Yeah.
I'm
Here
back
we go.
now.
Okay.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
anyway, I was thinking if I had a little map of the different types of conflict, that would really help me as a teacher to sort of know there's going to be conflict. It might be this kind or that kind or the other kind or this kind, and here's how to handle it, right? I think that would be really helpful to me because I've often been in situations where I wasn't sure how to help, whether to step in or not, whether to let the group solve its problems. So because of, I may be learning even to recognize the different types of conflicts that groups have when they're involved in media production.
So here, just to show you like the example, that's what I was talking about. If you can see on the shared screen, so you see that there is like the concern for others, cooperativeness, and concern for self-assertiveness. And then you can see that there's like 5 types. That is like the accommodating, collaborating, competitive, avoiding, and then there is the compromising. And so what I'm thinking is how that would look like in a production, when the camera person doesn't want to let anybody else touch the camera because they know how to take the shot and you don't know how to change the focus. And the editor who doesn't let anybody touch the computer, for example, versus the producer who lets everybody get what they want because they want the production to work and they're kind of like working on it. So I think there is an interesting way of looking at the types of production in an educational setting, again, not the industry, looking at that kind of like conflict management types.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Okay, so Renee, does that not sound like an academic department meeting? But I wanted to say one thing, Yonty, and that is that it's interesting to me because I have been on the phone with my daughter for the last 2 weeks. And she works on baseball. She was just promoted to a role where she's an assistant producer. She's only 26. And so this is an interesting thing you're bringing up about the industry standard. I think the industry is in going through change, just as we are in higher ed and in K-12 schools. And so the roles aren't as defined anymore. And as people move from one role to another, they're renegotiating all the time, sometimes on the fly. And it's their identity changes almost, because when I was behind the camera, it was this, but now I'm an assistant producer and it's this. I think this has great potential for the industry as well as education, because I think that the students we're preparing have to be ready for an industry that's in flux at the moment. It's not the way ESPN is losing viewers because people are cutting the cord. They're moving to the computer. They're moving to the phone. And some of the TV people don't know how to redefine their roles, and it's causing conflict that is coming from sort of external forces. So I think you have a lot of potential with this study in many different contexts because, group, all business wants people from college that can work in groups, yep. But yet some of the older, more senior people in business don't work in groups, and those kinds of conflicts, we say it's generational, but I think it's more about some of the external factors that are changing. So I think this project has tremendous potential. The only other thing I wanted to say was I have seen teachers do classroom, professional development on classroom management, all of this negotiation and accommodation and trying to do this. You go to a PD and it's sort of in a vacuum. By tying it to media production, you're giving it a context, one that's motivating for the students. They may know more about than their teachers. So you may get students who don't respond to the typical sort of classroom management type conflict management, but within the context of media production, all of a sudden they're interested. So I think you have tremendous potential for this project.
Wow. I just want to comment on that comment and then turn it back to Yonty. Kathy, thank you for sharing that great comment. It's helping me appreciate how the role of the behavior support specialist, right, in a school who is really point person for this kind of work is really the argument that you made that this might be the embodied activity that permits these abstract concepts about socio and emotional learning to be like do in a Deweyan sense, learn by doing, reflection.
I was thinking in the PD on classroom management or conflict resolution, you have the teachers make a video.
Oh,
Imagine if they had to, they're writing all these notes about getting along and they're thinking the students, if they as adults had to produce something and live through that conflict management. I've got like 20 ideas I'm writing down as we speak. So.
I have a quick question, if I can chime in quickly. So Yonty, I might have missed it, but when they're working through these conflicts or whatever, so these conflicts sort of organically arise, is there some sort of debrief process that happens afterwards where it gives them sort of an opportunity to process, when you changed roles, maybe you didn't want to change roles, how did that feel for you? Or you had an idea and someone didn't like your idea, how did you work? What did you do? What were some of the biggest challenges? Because it seems like giving them that opportunity to sort of process everything together and hear how maybe they had similar experiences and not feeling content with certain things, or went through each sort of shared in that conflict, whether it's sort of changing roles or whatever, if that makes any sense. But
yeah. So again, usually that's something that doesn't really happen. I mean, in my classes, yes, but it's not a typical thing to do those kind of debriefing. I'm going to use it in this summer, the research focus group for that.
okay.
So the idea is that you're coming for research, you're helping me.
You'll do the debriefing and the ploy, we'll call it research.
Yeah. Exactly, and then actually by asking the questions for the research.
Really the intervention that Haley is proposing. That's great. Which creates an interesting challenge, because then goes back to the intervention is the
But again, I mean, it's part of. But just to comment on what Kathy was saying, I just had a student, because the studios of ESPN are close to Central Connecticut State University. A lot of our students are going there. I had the students that went through the interview to the stages, and then he put me as a reference, and I had like this huge survey to fill out, and 99% of the questions were about under pressure. How does he collaborate? How does he work with other? It was like, I was shocked. Not questions about the technical abilities.
Because everybody's got that. Everybody who gets an interview's got that. It's the other things that set people apart. It's really that. I'm sorry, I cut you off, but it's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, I was really shocked that was exactly what they were looking for, and I was like, it was validating the way that I'm teaching, because as a faculty, we have a lot of arguments. Does it need to be technically, or does it need to be more collaboration? And you can think and where I lend to, like, what is my kind of approach.
With your teacher here? Yes, I think exactly where there we go. But you know what? I have had, I do a lot of tweeting, which embarrasses my daughter, with some of the ESPN people. And because I'm a professor and I do a lot with media, they are always saying the same. They have this one sort of motto, and they say, we can teach them the technical skills. You can't teach somebody in a pressure situation how to negotiate and collaborate.
Right.
And I think they're looking to the colleges to include more of that in part of the preparation.
Sure, because it might be practice makes perfect. That you might be a lousy collaborator for a few years until, you wake up and smell the coffee, have a big insight, and then you get a little bit better. So people probably get better with practice, though, right? We do think that.
And mentoring. You have to have someone who sort of shows you what it looks like if you don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But that goes back to Haley's suggestion, and it's going to those 3 circles that Goldman and Sanjay suggested. And I think by reflecting on those 3 and making it a conscious practice and not something that happens by, accident, but really thinking, what I'm doing, what the other is doing, and how does that affect the whole system and where we want to go to, and talking about it and learning to have like common language that those focus groups should create, that help also to kind of mediate those kind of conflicts and negotiation that happens.
Wow, fascinating.
I have one other question. It's quick, but it's the research question. Are you going to be in touch with them or available during those 6 months if they need some sort of support because they're running into, supportive at home or those things like Renee said, the others that are in that second
Yes,
or third
so
circle?
I'm giving them, when they finish those 12 hours, those 2 days, sometimes 3 days, they're getting some kind of a kit of the Media Education Lab with all the contact info as well. So they're getting like a storyboard, and again, the guidelines of like what to do, how each one of the steps, so that if they don't remember exactly, because it was like overwhelming first time, yeah, actually we did that. I didn't remember that we did that. And then they have also all the time, they have like the link for the Media Education Lab, our like contact info, and again, through Facebook and through Twitter, there are also some of them keep in touch and having discussion.
Great.
Nice, nice. I love that idea that you, when you're going through the experience, you might not remember all of it, and that basically having a little refresher review sheets actually are going to jog your memory to remember, oh yeah, we did that. So that's, I think, a brilliant pedagogical strategy to extend the learning. Let's see if there's anybody else who wants to make a comment or question before we close. Well, so one thing I would like to do is let's give Yonty a round of applause for that amazing presentation and leading us in a good discussion. For those of you who are viewing the recording, you guys missed a really, I thought, pretty lively interchange. Thanks to Haley and Kathy Leogrand. And Lisa is typing her brains out to document this in the closed captioning. Let me talk a little bit about what's happening next. I'm sharing my screen with you. We're pretty excited that May is a very good month for the Media Education Lab's webinars. On Monday, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern, Haley Dunn's going to talk about her research project, social media literacy and prevention. If you were at the top of the hour, you got to hear a little bit about that. And then on Tuesday, May 31st at 7 p.m., Frank Baker and I are going to do a session called Great Media Literacy Books for Every Learner. We're going to go through our bookshelf and show you the cool media literacy books that are appropriate for toddlers and school-age children and young adults, and that should be fun as well. We know you guys are in the end of the semester, but now's a time for us to celebrate our great community. So thanks for being part of our great community. I'll see you guys in a week or two. Thanks for joining. We're giving the goodbye wave. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.